Hi, this is Just a Dude Practicing. This channel is the real-time, riveting tale of a dude trying to get better at gypsy jazz guitar. So I upload every single practice that I do. Basically, every moment that I touch this guitar is on the channel. So the overall goal is to be good enough to gig. And that means playing both rhythm and soloing. And right now, and for the last several months, I've been working exclusively on soloing. So this is my monthly progress report. And in these progress reports, I like to look at what I'm working on, how things are going, what's improved, challenges I'm dealing with. And the idea is to do this on the first of every month, but this time I have to do it a few days early because I'm leaving tomorrow for the next couple of weeks. So the first question is, am I better than I was a month ago? So I don't know. I think probably a little bit. I'm still practicing about 2 hours a day. I think in the last 28 days or so, I've missed maybe a day or two. I've had a couple of practices that had to be a little bit short where I started practicing late in the day because I try not to practice after 8 p.m. for the neighbors and people upstairs and downstairs. So when I was working on book 2 of the Van Hemert system, and if you look in any of my videos, that's basically what I'm working on, is stuff from Christiaan Van Hemert's, his system for how to solo in jazz and gypsy jazz. So when I was working on book 2, progress was really obvious, right? I had exercises to do. There were clear improvements in my technique, and my stamina. You know, if I couldn't do an exercise last week, you know, within a week or two, I could generally do it pretty well. So it's not quite as clear cut right now, you know, if I'm making progress. I do feel like my technique is getting more solid. Some licks and phrases that I've been playing for a while now feel more natural. I know or understand a few things that I didn't last month. So, and I'll get into that in a little bit. So change number 1 of the last month. I changed picks. And that might not seem like a big deal. I mean, unless you're a guitar player, in which case you know that it is a big deal. So I was using a 2mm pick for years, but someone asked me a couple of weeks ago, I think, in a comment about using picks, and they said, "Well, you know, does the thick pick ever feel unnatural?" And it turns out they were using either a 3 or a 3.5mm pick, and I thought about it, and I wrote back, and I said, you know, a lot of people are using thinner picks. And if you look at a list of the top players, almost all of them are using picks that are under 2mm. And in writing that, I got to thinking, I'm like, well, so why am I using a 2mm pick? If everyone else is using, a thinner one, why don't I try it? So I changed that day. I ran to a kind of a local guitar shop. So I'm now using the Dunlop Gator Grip 1.5mm, the green one. A lot of people are using the purple. I think they're Delrins, but the Delrins are pretty slippery for me for whatever reason. So I like the grip on the Gator Grips. So that has been, I feel like a massive change for me because I got so used to the 2mm that the 1.5 does feel very thin. It clearly has a brighter sound. When I watch the videos back, when I'm making chapters, I can hear the difference. Even when I'm practicing too, I can hear the difference. I don't notice any major improvements in speed yet, but it could be because I'm just not used to it. But yeah, I mean, to sum it up, I changed because everyone else that I respect is using a thinner pick. So I thought, well, if it works for them, I should probably, follow their lead. So yeah, that's been a really big change. So I'm using the 1.5. Let's see, change number 2 of the last month. So I said in the last progress report that my left hand was starting to feel very stiff. I feel like I have almost a bruising in the knuckles of these fingers. And luckily, that's pretty much gone away. Like I can still feel something, but it does seem to be better now, and I'm not too worried about it. I don't stretch as much during practice or before practice as I used to. And because someone mentioned, stretching can actually aggravate early signs of, or can aggravate arthritis. And I think I was starting to get early signs of arthritis. I didn't really rest. I wanted to, but every time I pick up the guitar, I just want to jump into, soloing stuff. So I did spend a day, and this might have actually been 6 weeks ago or so. So it might have been in the last parts report. But I spent a day doing rhythm. And while I do need to work on my rhythm, I really just wanted to jump back into soloing stuff. So I did. Yeah, so as for why it feels better, I'm guessing it's because I'm not doing 2 hours of exercises, like straight through for the whole time, like I was doing with book 2. These days in my practice, there's a lot more pausing, there's a lot more thinking. I'm putting backing tracks at 50% or 75%, really slowing them down to give myself a chance to figure out what to play over stuff. So it could be that it's not, my practices aren't as physically intense as they were when I was doing pure exercises. But right, so my left hand is feeling better, but a couple of weeks ago, turns out I had something of a bulging neck disc. So 6 years ago I had a herniated, which is affecting my right hand. That's the connection. So that is change 3, bulging neck disc. Not great. So 6 years ago I had a herniated disc in my neck, same spot, and it was really, really painful. My back, my shoulders hurt. My left fingers were numb for a couple of years, actually. So these two guys. And a few weeks ago, I started to feel a very similar, very familiar pain on the right side. So 6 years ago it was on the left side. A few weeks ago, could start to feel it on the right side. Uncomfortable ache, uncomfortable pain in my shoulder, in the shoulder blade back here, numbness in these two fingers. It was very uncomfortable to practice for about a week and a half, 2 weeks. And I thought, great, I'm going to be stuck with this for another year or so like I was 5-6 years ago. I was tossing and turning at night. Holding the guitar was very uncomfortable. But a friend suggested this kind of physical therapy that I'd actually never heard of. And I won't really get into it because this is not a medical recommendation channel. I went into it very skeptical, but I figured, what, I'll give it a shot. And a week and a half later, zero pain in my shoulder, zero pain in my shoulder blade, into my back. The numbness is down by 90%. So, hallelujah. I'm pretty much back. So my hands are generally okay. There is still some numbness, but it's not preventing me from practicing or really interfering with my day-to-day. Although I can't really feel textures with the tips of these fingers, which is surprisingly inconvenient at times. You wouldn't think of it, but I do have to get used to it. So hopefully that goes away relatively soon. All right, change number 4. I kind of jammed. So Christiaan van Hemert and everyone in his Discord, they've been telling me I need to jam. And people in the comments too, you need to jam. If you want to get better, you have to go out and play with people. And I've been resisting it. And I'm still resisting it. And I explained in the last progress report why. I mean, to sum it up, it's because if I can't successfully get through one course of a song in the comfort of my own home, on my couch, what good is it going to do to be with real people, right? With that pressure, dealing with, sound issues and nerves, maybe someone who doesn't know how to play rhythm or plays too loudly or their tempo goes up and down. Why add extra layers if I can't, right? Why try to run if I can't walk, essentially? But I did kind of jam. There's a guy who has a small bar down the street from me, and I haven't seen him in a long time, but he plays a bit of gypsy jazz. He actually plays a ton of instruments. He's got a cello and a hang drum and all sorts of stuff in his bar. And when I found out about the neck disc problem, it was, I don't know, like a week into it. I realized I couldn't exercise, couldn't go to the gym, so I needed to get out of the house and do something. So I went for a walk, ended up walking by his place. He was there. Within a couple of minutes of saying hi, we both had guitars and we were jamming on Sweet Sue, which is the song that I was working on at the time. And it was mostly a disaster, right? So jamming went about as well as I thought it would go. I couldn't really think of what to play. Again, there were rhythm issues, timing issues, right? Two people trying to figure out a song together. We tried minor swing. That was kind of the same problem. I just fell back into the same arpeggios, a handful of arpeggios that I've been playing for, forever. Because I haven't tried minor swing since learning the Van Hemert system stuff. So yeah, so I did jam. It went just as well as I thought it would, which is not great. All right, change number 5, composing solos. So I put up 2 new shorts on the channel yesterday, I think. And I spent a couple of hours on each chorus. Their choruses over All the Things You Are. So what I was doing to practice soloing was Van Hemert system stuff, which is basically you take a phrase, you put on a song, and you just play that phrase wherever it fits. And the idea is to just play it so much and hear where it needs to be played that it just becomes automatic, which is great. But I wanted to try something a little bit different. Actually, there's a song of the month. The song of the month on the Discord for May, I guess it's still the song of the month, was All the Things You Are. And I put it in the backing track. I tried to see if anything would come out, but there are just so many gaps in my understanding of what to play where. So a few days ago or last week, whenever it was, I decided, you know what, I'll just create a chorus. I'll give myself time to think. I'll give myself time to look up stuff, give myself time to, really slow everything down and just try to create something, right? Fill in the gaps in my misunderstanding or gaps in understanding. So, yeah, it was really enjoyable. You can see them, like I said, on my shorts. So now that I've kind of done that and sat with All the Things You Are for a while, I feel like I'm more prepared to actually, actually improvise over it. Just because now I've slowed down enough and I've taken enough time to understand what needs to go where, what needs to happen when. So yeah, it's kind of like learning a foreign language, right? Like one of the big suggestions for how to learn a foreign language is to keep a journal, right? And the idea is in the comfort of your own home, right? You can quietly sit down and write things that have happened, write a journal, and you get to think about it. You get to, really piece your thoughts together. So then later, when you're in a conversation and you just have to, do it rapid fire, you're a little more prepared, right, to handle that. What else? Let's see. Oh, also apparently Stokello, I don't know if I'm saying that right, Stokello, Rosenberg, Bergara, a few other people, apparently they've done the same thing where they would just compose solos and that's what they would play for a long time until eventually they were totally comfortable just improvising. So yeah, let's see. What else? Eventually I'm going to get back to the Van Hemert system of soloing where you take a phrase and just, play it wherever you think it'll fit. But I like the idea of composing solos with that system. Again, it just gives you time to figure things out. Right? If you keep going back to the same phrase, well, if you slow down, maybe you can come up with something a little bit better, which is what I found happened with All the Things You Are. Okay. Change 6. So I was pretty successful with All the Things You Are. There were some issues, but change 6 is that I completely failed yesterday trying to come up with another solo, another chorus for a different song. So for next month's, for June's Song of the Month in Christiaan's Discord, they chose If I Should Lose You, which is a song I've never heard of. I listened to a couple of versions. I don't recall ever hearing it. So I thought, you know what? Things went so well with All the Things You Are. Why don't I try the same thing? So I found the chords, found a couple of backing tracks, and I tried to create a solo and compose a solo. It just did not work, at all. I couldn't, it wasn't that I didn't understand what I was seeing in front of me, what the chords were. It was just, I couldn't really seem to play or find anything to play that made sense. So yeah, nothing sounded good. I guess I'll try it again when I'm back for my trip. But yeah, huge solo composition failure yesterday. That was kind of a downer. All right, change number, I guess we're on 7. Rhythm work. So I know that I need to relearn rhythm. And I was really reminded after that mini jam I had down the street, because I was playing rhythm. I just kept thinking, man, this something is not right. Like the bounce is just not correct. So I've spent a couple of days in the last month watching some videos and really slowing things down and trying to find the right movements for my right hand. But I gave it up pretty quickly. Again, all I wanted to do was go back to the soloing stuff. So what I'm thinking now is, what I keep hearing is, you need to really work on your rhythm, because when you're gigging or jamming or whatever, that's what you're going to be doing 95% of the time. So I figure, well, when I'm ready to do that, I'll just learn on the job, right? I mean, it's 95% of my practice time is going to have to go to soloing, even though 95% of the time I'm, jamming or gigging, I'll be doing rhythm. But I think I can learn rhythm on the job. I don't really think I can learn soloing on the job. Yeah, so I'm kind of looking at it here and there, rhythm. I keep thinking, I need to spend a few more days on it, maybe like a day a week or a few minutes of each practice. But yeah, I haven't been very good with any sort of structure like that. Next change, whatever number we're on. Excuse me. I've been working on book 3 of the Van Hemert system. One moment. So I finished book 2 a couple of months ago, or I don't know, 7 weeks ago, and I've been working on book 3, which is 1930s Django vocabulary, licks and phrases. And I've sampled a bunch of chapters, some really, really cool stuff. So I'm not as focused on book 3 as I was on book 2, though. I haven't submitted any exercises yet, and you can see it in my other progress reports, but basically the way it works is each chapter has a set of phrases. Like the first chapter is major phrases or licks. Second chapter is 5-1 resolutions, and what you do is you take those licks or those phrases as a set and you play them in all keys against a backing track. And it's very difficult, takes a very long time to not make too many mistakes. You send that video to Christiaan van Hemert, he gives you notes, and you either pass or you're told to do it again. So I will eventually, but I'm kind of, and I'll talk about this in a couple of minutes, but I'm kind of juggling a lot of things right now when I practice. But just some thoughts. In a way, I feel like book 3 is more difficult than book 2, but it could be my imagination. It could just be that I'm not used to the licks like I was with, like I am with book 2. It could be that I'm not spending as much time on it, as I was with book 2. But I'll tell you, the rhythm of the licks or the phrases, the timing, I feel like it's a lot trickier. Probably because it's Django stuff, right? So it's not, straightforward. There are a bunch of sweeps that are very difficult. A lot of bends. And all of my bends sound like what motion sickness feels like. Every time I bend, I just get this feeling like, oh God, that's not right. But yeah, I mean, book 2 also felt really difficult. I didn't think any of the exercises would ever feel comfortable or sound quite right to my ears, but now they all do, right? Now they sound like they make sense. So maybe the same will happen with book 3. All right, the next change I mentioned a moment ago is I feel like I'm juggling a lot of practice materials, and I knew this was going to happen. I've been going back to books 1 and 2 for review and upkeep, because I don't want to lose the stuff that I learned in book 2. And not so much, the note for note licks as just the technique, right? Like triplets. Triplets took me a really long time to get, and they're still just barely there. So I'm like, even with the triplets, I made sure to add them to my composed solo of All the Things You Are. And they sound cool, right? But again, I also wanted to force myself to keep playing them. Once you get triplets down, everything else becomes a little bit easier. I've also been working on book 3, like I said, trying to add in some rhythm, trying to do improv using the system where you take a lick, play it over backing tracks wherever you think it'll fit, trying to compose solos. It's all a big jumble right now. So, I mean, I haven't even gotten into things like memorizing songs, intros, outros, learning the heads to songs, that kind of repertoire stuff. So I try to schedule. Like I have little notes on my phone where I'm like, all right, look, for the next few practices, let's break it down like this. You're going to spend, this much time here, this much time there. And I abandon that's kind of schedule immediately. As soon as I pick up this thing and start practicing, I just can't help but do whatever it is I want to do in that session. I guess this is why it takes so long to learn jazz. All right, the next change is I think I'm finally getting a handle on altered lines. Now, I've been using altered stuff as my go-to example for things I don't know, right? When I've said in previous videos, there's so many things I don't know, there's so many gaps in my knowledge, for example, altered stuff. Like if you've got a D7, when do you play, regular D7 stuff as opposed to altered stuff, altered 7 stuff? And I'm happy to report, I think I'm finally coming to grips with that. Now I have an idea, like yesterday when I was failing miserably on If I Should Lose You, or trying to compose a solo, I at least knew, that needs to have some altered stuff over it. All right, so I guess that's a small win. There we go. All right, another change, not really a change, but I had a lengthy conversation with Christiaan van Hemert. I thought it was going to be about 30 minutes. It ended up being about an hour and 45. Really great. If you want to see the unedited conversation, it's on my channel, and I'll link it in the description. Christiaan also took the conversation and edited it down, and then he reacted to our convo, which is actually really interesting to see his thoughts on what we were saying. So there's a link to that in the description as well. So he's reacted to my progress reports in the past, and we've messaged a bunch of times on Discord, but we finally had a chance to sit down and talk, which is really nice. What can I say? He's very generous with his time and knowledge, and he seems to genuinely want people in his Discord to just get better. So I spent hours making a massive list of timestamps of everything we talked about in my unedited video, again, the one that's on my channel. So just to give you a little preview, things we talked about, there's lots of me gushing over his books, of course, practice, how it doesn't look like anything, talked about his violin schedule as a child, his history as a transcriber, how the Rosenberg Trio used to tell him to sit out of songs because he wasn't good enough and or fast enough, which is really interesting, how practicing 2 hours a day is barely enough for gypsy jazz, how much he practices, my history with gypsy jazz guitar, how I learned gypsy picking. Spoiler, I learned it from Gypsy Picking by Michael Horowitz, the book. He asked me, how long do you think it'll take to learn how to improvise? And I cleared up some confusion because I think it was his last reaction to his reaction to my last progress report, he thought that I was under the impression it would take like a month to learn how to improvise, right? Oh, now that I've been through book 2, I'll just learn how to improvise in a month, then we'll be good to go. So I made it very clear that that is not what I was thinking. Let's see, he explained Christoph changes, altered phrases. He explained soloing over Sweet Sue. That was what I was working on at the time of our conversation. Gave a bunch of great demonstrations. And then he told me to forget everything that he just said, which is kind of funny. We talked about how creativity is not a concern for me right now. How Stockello gets excited about licks that he never ends up playing, which is really interesting. How great players play the same things over every song. The value of humility. And the really big one, he gave me a timeline, which is kind of cool. He says he thinks I'll be confident in my ability to be okay, right? When I am in a gig situation, I'll be confident in my ability to be okay in 3 to 4 years, which I'm okay with, right? I mean, he has a lot more experience than I do, so it's kind of interesting to put a number on it because I haven't. people have asked me, do you have a timeline? When do you think you can start gigging, and when do you think you'll be good and all that? And I'm just really hesitant because it's not something that I can tell. Right? I don't have experience in doing this, so yeah, it was kind of interesting that he could put a number on it like that, 3 to 4 years. All right, another change. I mean, not really a change, but in line with talking to Christiaan van Hemert, I had conversations with some other musicians from the Discord. One of the videos is on my site. There's a conversations playlist. It's just one other guy. And then I spoke to someone else from the Discord. We didn't record it though. We spoke a couple of times, and they helped me out with Sweet Sue. Again, I was trying to solo over Sweet Sue at that point. Got into some other stuff. One of the guys is a musician in New Orleans, which must be amazing. And just everyone's very helpful, supportive, encouraging. And yeah, it's just really cool to have a community where if I have a question, someone will say, yeah, let's just, let's try to solve it right now. All right, another change. I have not been very good about posting on the community tab on my channel. And in the community tab, what I like to do is I screenshot comments that people leave on videos and my responses to the comments and just have them all in one place. And I've been very lazy with it. So I hope to get back to that soon. And I respond to everything, good and bad, including someone said, what's the point of making music that sounds like AI generated jazz? And I know you're not supposed to feed the trolls, but I couldn't help myself. And we had a back and forth for a little while. So yeah, I'll try to be better about that, but I have not been posting in the community tab. The other big change that I mentioned at the beginning is that I'm not going to be playing guitar for the next 2 weeks. So I'm going on a trip, and this thing will just be extra luggage. I'm staying at my sister's house, so I don't really want to be making a racket there. I also don't want the pressure of feeling like I need to practice. Right, this trip is for family and some other stuff, but yeah, maybe if I were an actual gigging musician, it might be different. I'd probably bring it and keep up my practice routine, but I'm not. So I decided, you know what, zero guilt, zero pressure. Not going to bring the guitar, or even try to acquire one when I'm there. I'm just going to leave it be. So kind of in line with that, I'm not going to have a chance to practice today or tomorrow because I have to get ready to go and I have a few other things to take care of. So yeah. Now, just about done. Where I want to be a month from now. One of the staple questions of the progress report. So a month from now, I hope I get back from my trip and get back to practicing immediately. Because trips can completely destroy a habit. This has happened to me a lot, right? You go on a trip, you get comfortable not going to the gym, not eating a clean diet, not reading or studying or waking up early, right? You get used to things like not finding time to practice your instrument for a couple hours a day. So I want to get back here and start practicing immediately, 2 hours a day, just like I've been doing for a little over 6 months now. I also hope that the trip is going to give my hands a chance to really heal, like whatever issues are remaining. Hope that's taken care of. And the other thing, the other place I want to be a month from now is I want to be posting on the community tab again more consistently. I don't even know if many people look at it, but I enjoy scrolling through and just being reminded of all the interesting comments that people leave. Speaking of which, if you have comments or questions, drop me a message. I respond to all of them. Like I said, good or bad, encouraging and critical. So yeah, that's all. Until next time,